You might want to sit down for this. He started...
It's a project first dreamed up by the military to get information from the battlefield.
You don't think the moon landing is real?
No, I don't. No.
Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me again. Let's get straight into it.
Typical tea bag is sprayed with plastic on the outside to keep it together and doesn't rip. And that plastic comes off the tea bag as microplastics. Average cup of hot tea brewed, even with a regular tea bag that has plastic sprayed on it, sheds 1 billion microplastic particles into your cup of tea. Microplastics in the cup of tea are invisible. So here you are thinking you're drinking something good, but actually you're also taking in these microplastics, which we used to think may not be doing that much harm, but now we're beginning to think cause inflammation. So recent studies have shown that in people with narrowed arteries, including arteries feeding your brain, your carotid arteries, blockages, when the doctors have pulled out the lining, the thickened areas, they've actually found microplastics embedded into the narrowing, and it's correlated with a 4-fold increase of fatal heart attack and stroke. More recent research has shown microplastics in the testicles, in semen, and just last week, a new paper came out showing they found microplastics embedded in the flesh of the penis as well. So, old tea leaves in a ball, fine. Tea leaves in a bag, I would stay away from that.
Microplastics. I've heard it all now in your tea bags. We're British. No wonder we've got micro penis. Explains it all now. Got plastics in your head of your pee. Jeez. Don't want another breath.
2 men in the US have died in a remote forest while searching for Bigfoot. Drones, aircraft, dogs, and 60 volunteers were called in on a 3-day search starting on Christmas Day to find the pair, after a family member reported that they hadn't returned from a trip to the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest to find proof that the mystical creature existed. Authorities in Washington state said rescuers searched in brutally cold weather conditions and said the men appeared to have died due to exposure based on weather conditions and ill preparedness. Hundreds of sightings of Bigfoot, who also goes by the name Sasquatch, have been reported in the Pacific Northwest of the United States and Western Canada. In Skamania County, where the pair went missing, Bigfoot is protected so that a person can end up getting a year in prison or a $1,000 fine if the creature is harmed.
Surprised I'm not pinning it all on Bigfoot now. Do you know what I mean? I always got someone to blame. Sad story either way. You shouldn't have to come to this going out proving that. It should just be known that Bigfoot is real. There's DNA, there's nests, there's video, there's photos, there's encounters, people's encounters, well, there's noises, there's everything. It's ridiculous.
Okay, so I'm a little bit of an old book whore. And because I am a firm believer in timeline deception, I actively seek out books that are older than the 1900s. Now, in my opinion, I think we've been indoctrinated since the mid-1800s, so I have a really, really hard time trying to find any books that are older than 1850. So anytime I go to a bookstore, there's a used bookstore here in my town, and I will sit there for at least an hour and look through every single old book, and they constantly get new ones every week, but I came across this one. And original copyright is in 1877, so that's about as close to 1850 as I have been able to get in a really long time. I spent like 3, maybe 4 hours yesterday just going through this book and reading this encyclopedia of just a plethora of knowledge from the late 1800s. Last night I read things about giants that were found and how they were buried and how much the bones weighed. They weighed like 300 pounds. I also read that elephants lived to be 400 years old and swans were living to 200 years old. Because it is a encyclopedia of wit and wisdom, there is also some hilarious jokes and short stories and poetical. This is just the most fascinating book I have ever put my hands on. There's information in here about Egyptian things that were found on the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon, and different findings of like these people who launched a rock off a hill and it opened up a cavern in this this mountain in Utah, and it was like ancient site with mummies and like statues of every single kind of animal. And these are all collections of journals and things that people of huge historical notes and wealth have talked about and shared. So I'm going to start this TikTok channel and dedicate it to the information that I uncover in this book. And I hope your mind is as blown as I am, because this is the most incredible find I've ever had in my life, and I can't find anything about this book. So follow along, enjoy the journey.
I'm going to try and stay tuned with this one just to see what she does uncover with this book, because very, very interesting. These all booked before all the conspiracies and all that come out, so very interesting, one to watch.
You don't think the moon landing is real?
No, I don't. No. Do you?
Yeah.
Why do you think the moon landing is real? Why don't you tell me why?
I saw it on television.
Oh, you're a genius. Oh, beep that. Hit
Okay,
that.
we'll bleep it. We'll bleep it. No, it's okay. We got
That's
it.
genius. You saw it on TV? That's awesome. I'm going to show you some CGI. I'm going to show you King Kong. I saw that on TV, too. There's an 80-foot gorilla. He's running around kidnapping white chicks. You should check it out. 1972 was the last time a human being has been through the Van Allen radiation belt. 1972. That's the last time. There's been only 7 trips ever that human beings have ever gone past 400 miles. Every single space station mission, every space shuttle, every satellite, all of those are inside the protective Van Allen radiation belts, which start at 1,000 miles. They go from 1,000 miles to, depending on who you ask, if you ask NASA, 24,000 miles. If you ask James Van Allen, the guy who discovered it, it's 67,000 miles of intense radiation that's in a gigantic donut band that covers around the Earth. Now, even if you got outside of that band, you have to deal with solar cycles. There's the apex of a 20-year solar cycle was between 1969 and 1972. All the time when these guys are making those missions. Any one of those guys out there in those tiny little aluminum shielded crafts would have been killed instantly during any solar flare.
Why fake it?
Thank you, Carl. Why not fake it?
You should open with that.
If you look at any of the footage online, it looks ridiculous. It looks stupid. If you look at the videos, it looks ridiculous and dumb. You know why? Because in 1969, nobody anticipated that we were going to have VCRs and the internet. We were going to be able to watch that. They wanted to win the Cold War. The Soviet Union's had over 10 firsts in space. First man in space, first woman in space, first they had everything. First dog in space. They had first satellite. They were so much more advanced than the Americans were. But the Americans were more advanced in trickery, and that's what they did. They figured out a way to fake it. That's why when Neil Armstrong got back, first of all, he went insane. They went into a deep depression. So did Buzz Aldrin. He became a huge alcoholic. He gave no interviews. Neil Armstrong still to this day will not give interviews. He gave one speech that he gave at the 25th anniversary of the moon landing, and this is what he said in front of America's best honor students. He said, "We have here amongst us America's best and brightest," and the quote was, "You will achieve many great things if you could peel away one of truth's hidden layers." That's a speech this guy gives standing in front of the top honor students of the country. Not, "I went to the moon." He doesn't say that. He gives this cryptic speech. Now, Bill Clinton, in page 100, I think it's 156 of his book, My Life, he gives this story about how when he was a kid, he was working with this carpenter, and this carpenter said, "I don't believe man landed on the moon." It was 3 months after the moon landing, and he said, "I thought that guy was ridiculous." He said, "You know what? I don't believe anything those TV fellows show you." He said, "After 8 years in the White House, I thought maybe that guy was ahead of his time."
Wow.
This is in Bill Clinton's autobiography.
Wow.
This is in his book. There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way.
By the way,
it's impossible today. China wants to go back to the moon. They don't even have a clue how to do it. They're going to try to get there in 2020. America thinks we could possibly go back in 2017. All of the hard data, the telemetry data, 14,000 reels is missing. No one can find it. What the telemetry data is, that's the binary data, the ones and the zeros that show the distance between the command module and the Earth during every step of the way on the way to the moon and back, which you can't fake. They don't have that. They can't find it. Which you would think would be in a locked golden vault at the Smithsonian. But no, they can't find it. Well, they say, well, they placed laser reflectors on the moon. You could shoot a laser beam. That's proof. Well, it's not proof because the Russians did it twice with unmanned probes. The Russians also collected space samples and samples of the moon.
Very amazing, and I've had these guys on. And
which guys?
The different guys on the internet that are behind.
There's a lot of guys, and I've debated that one guy, that Phil Plait from Battersea. I clown that guy.
The guy that gets in every astronaut's face.
Well, that guy's a crazy Christian, and he's nuts. Which is, you have to be a little crazy to look that deep into this theory because it seems so so solid. We went to the moon. It seems so solid until you look into it.
But here's the only thing. We can't keep anything quiet in this country.
It doesn't matter. No one's keeping it quiet.
Everybody
you
at
go
NASA,
look at it.
the astronauts, I mean...
Those guys are afraid of their lives. Gus Grisham, the pilot who was the guy who died on the launch pad along with two of his friends, he was a public critic of NASA. He put a lemon, he hung it on the simulator, put a lemon and put it on a hanger and hung it. He was dead in that same cockpit. He died like 2 weeks later. He burned to death inside of that. They were terrified. This is a matter of life and death. These guys were in the middle of a huge Cold War between Russia, and they wanted to show that America had technological superiority. The race to the moon landing, all that stuff is not about going to the moon and collecting things. It's about military superiority. It's about the ability to do things with military technology. All that stuff they use for NASA, all the stuff they use for the stealth bomber, the space shuttle, all those missions, it's not for philanthropy missions. That's to fuel the military industrial complex. The machine behind this is all the military. And getting to the moon first is making a statement that we have military technological superiority over Russia, and that's what they did.
You've got
if you look into it, man, the more you look into it, look, there's every photograph of the moon looks goofy. There's intersecting shadows that show more than one light source, and you could try to explain any one of these things away, which many people do. But the problem is when you look at them all together.
Joe, we're not on for 10 hours. Man cow.
This has always baffled me. This why Joe Rogan's. It sounds like a hater on this channel of Joe Rogan. I really am a massive fan of Joe Rogan, but it just seems fishy, very fishy the way he's just done a full 180 on it. It's very fishy. I don't think anyone's got to him. I just think it could be the Elon thing. It could be because his hero Elon, who we're going to get into a bit in this channel, got a good video of Elon coming up. I wonder what Joe's take on this one would be.
To change the way you talk to yourself. So this is Dr. Emoto, and he did 2 experiments that are incredibly interesting. The first experiment had to do with water. He would take these water samples and he would think either negative things like "you fool" or positive things like "thank you," and look how the crystals form. I mean, look at these. Friend, look how beautiful that is. I can do it versus I can't do it. Honest. Here's the impact of music on these water crystals. Just look at these differences. Thank you, wisdom, truth, eternal, angel. All these verses, you make me sick, evil, polluted water after a prayer. Look at that. Here's some more before and afters. A prayer was offered with the water. Like, this is so cool. The second experiment is also very interesting. He would boil rice so that it would absorb the water, and then he would put it into 3 different jars and label them: love, nothing, hate. The love jar, for 10 minutes a day, he would think positive thoughts with that jar. He would say positive things. The nothing jar, nothing was done. The hate jar, 10 minutes a day, would get very hateful words. He would think negative things and send that negative energy. The results were crazy. The hate jar had a ton of rot in the rice and was black. Nothing had some. The love jar was preserved. This makes me think of a couple of things. Number 1, we definitely should be praying over our food and water every time we eat and send positive vibrations. Number 2, our bodies are 80% water. The things you think and say about yourself do take effect. This is one of my favorite books. It's called As Man Thinketh. Listen to this. The outer world of circumstance shapes itself to the inner world of thought, both pleasant and unpleasant. External conditions are factors which make the ultimate good of the individual. You are the reaper of your harvest. You learn both by suffering and bliss. It's interesting because the book also describes that people who often get sick are those who constantly worry and are afraid about getting sick. Your thoughts have power. Love you, bye.
It's most definitely power. I believe in thinking it into existence and stuff, but I don't think you can just think of something half-assed comes true. I think you've got to actually believe and have the feeling of that you're doing it. I feel like it has to be more to it like than just like, I want some beans are going to appear. Do you know what I mean? It has to be, you have to believe it, think it, try and get the feeling of your body that you've actually said. For instance, that woman who kept winning, and she kept believing herself, that woman, if you've ever heard the story where she kept picturing herself having won, for real, not just like, oh, I've won. And she kept winning competitions and stuff like that. So I believe in you can do things like that, law of attraction, etc. And there's lots to the mind, more than what we're told, and we're being dumbed down, and we're certainly more powerful and gifted than what we are led to believe. Certainly.
He's just amazing. He's gonna bring humanity to Mars. You're not being serious, are you? This is a bit, right? What? He's a genius and a self-made billionaire. You might want to sit down for this. He started his first company with money from his dad and his rich friends. Well, he ran it well enough to make it huge. Not really. He sold it for $22 million to a larger company that was just trying to squash all competition, and then he got even more money.
Raising $50 million is a matter of making a series of phone calls.
He's still a genius. You'll never be able to take that away. His online banking startup had a security flaw that was so bad you could transfer funds from anyone else with just an account number. The board fired him because he was ruining the company financially, but he still made $180 million when it sold. He is the reason we can have a green future.
I'd like to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. That'd be cool.
What he really wanted was fame. But he still founded Tesla. Tesla was founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. Who? Not Elon. He bought in. He became CEO in 2008, then started a media campaign to get loans and investments. Daimler said they would invest if he got a Department of Energy loan, so he lied and said he did. Then he applied for the Department of Energy loan and put Daimler's involvement on that application. He lied to get the loans? Yep, $451 million of government money, and now Tesla makes money in an interesting way. Selling carbon credits. Companies' carbon emissions are capped, and Tesla reduces emissions so they earn a lot of credits, and they sell them to the companies that go over. The few quarters that Tesla was profitable were mostly thanks to this. That just erases the progress. When Elon tweeted, "Funding secured, Tesla going private at $420, that was a lie, and it inflated the stock price of Tesla.
My cash balances are very, very low. I simply had loans against my stock, so if Tesla and SpaceX went bankrupt, I would go bankrupt too.
Now he's being sued for $248 billion for buying Dogecoin, then using his public presence to inflate the price and profit off of it. He says he's going to save the planet and save humanity while he exploits people and the system.
Well. I'm going to have to post this on X because I've got a 2-week ban off YouTube. I think it's a 2-week ban. I'm hoping it's just a 2-week ban over something so stupid. So I hope Elon sees this. I'd love to see his take on this as well. He don't care, does he? Obviously don't care, they just make money. They're not really bothered, but I'd love to see what anyone else's take on it. So please feel free to comment. Especially Elon lovers. I keep seeing, I've had about 6 inbox me on X I've been on it about 5 days, and I've had people inbox me pretending to be Elon Musk. So weird. You're grown adults. Stop pretending to be other adults. It's weird.
It's a project first dreamed up by the military to get information from the battlefield.
They call it smart dust, and the new technology may soon make it possible to keep track of anything, anywhere, including you.
Smart dust originated with DARPA back in the 90s. This powder-sized chip is something called the Mu chip from Hitachi. It's the smallest commercially available RFID system in the world. You can literally scatter this stuff like dust or embed it into a sheet of paper. It doesn't require a battery. Flecks of computing power settling on your skin, ingested, monitoring you inside and out.
The nanoparticles are designed to go under the radar of the immune system. And so they are undetected in the body.
We have computing everywhere, we have connectivity everywhere, we have infrastructure that can compute those with new capabilities like AI.
If you have enough data and you have enough computing power, you can understand people better than they understand themselves, and then you can manipulate them in ways which were previously impossible.
Transhumanism is a growing movement that aims to use technology to modify our bodies, sometimes in radical ways to make them stronger, faster, and better.
Hexagonal water is very real, and there's a reason that they hide it from us, because it prevents disease, helps your metabolism, and prevents aging. Here's a digital book from the Library of Congress's website by Dr. Mushik John. He was a doctor, a professor, and he studied hexagonal water for over 40 years. So in this part, he's talking about DNA. This is how DNA looks when it's hydrated with hexagonal water. This is regular water. Hexagon water, unstructured water. And the reason for that is because the DNA hydrated with hexagonal water had 36 water molecules, while the DNA hydrated by the unstructured water only had 25. The structured water actually structures your DNA, and it forms a layer of protection from all sorts of outside influences which could cause malfunction or distortion. Structured water is one of the few things that's proven to actually help your metabolism. Did you know that aging is caused by a loss of structured water? Not only does hexagonal water reverse and prevent aging, it literally helps you live longer. Do you know how to get hexagonal water? By storing it in a copper vessel. These ones are 100% pure copper. I will link them below if anybody's interested.
This is unbelievable. I know, we bang on about copper on this channel all the time. Hexagon water. I've heard something about hexagon. I don't know how to word this. I've heard something to do with hexagon molecules or water or something very, very long time ago, but I never had it explained like this and put together with copper. So it makes much more sense to me now with this mindset I'm in now, where I'm more open-minded. I've always been open-minded, but like where I could take it in and like it be explained in a nicer way for me than too technical, because it won't in my head. I'm not smart enough for that. So again, another very interesting one. I'm all for copper.
Saddam Hussein rejected the Rothschild banking cabal. He rejected the central bankers.
That's what that was all about?
Yeah, he wanted his own system of monetary exchange outside of the central banks. We can't have that shit.
Right.
Guess who else did that? JFK.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Guess who else did that? Muammar Gaddafi.
Yeah.
Guess who's doing that now? Vladimir Putin. Gotta have regime change. Because we can't have this rejection of the central banks, because that's what's required for the ushering in of the one world governance, the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
The New World Order. The Hold the Pale Horse. You know, that is every single military intervention that we have been in has been funded by the Rothschilds. So,
banking system.
Yeah. So just think about that. The bankers tell us when to open our borders. The bankers tell us when transgenderism should be accepted. The bankers tell us when we're facing systemic racism and when to riot. We don't do anything with or without the permission of the bankers.
10 years ago, I was talking about chemtrails and contrails, and I was getting fobbed off by being called a tinfoiler and a tinner and everything, all this, all the usual low-hanging fruit, buzzwords, all that stuff. Then it came true. It's obvious. Cloud seeding, chemtrails, all everything. Now, to take it to this level, imagine saying this 10 years ago. They're firing missiles into the sky. Come on. Let's get you to the ward. Come on, let's get you to the psych ward. Come on. There's lots of cameras and evidence around these days. They don't care, it's just blatant now. They're not bothered, are they? It's madness. Firing missiles into the sky.
If you notice you're flying in the helicopter, those places were big roofs, they didn't do it. It's the right material. Yeah. So we gotta change that. Anyway. We're gonna put some trees. People up and go.
Remember, blue roofs. Get your blue roofs. We heard what Sleepy Joe said then. Or Grandpa Joe. He's causing more problems for them. They need to get him to bed. He's a health risk. He's a hazard to whatever their agenda is. Get him to bed. Jeez. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate your time again. If anyone's actually even still watching at this point in the game. Everyone's got TikTok brain these days. But anyway, if you are, thank you. And I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.